I stood in the lawyer's office, hands trembling as I held my father's real will. The paper felt heavier than it should have weighted with everything Dad had worked 30 years to build. My stepmother, Lorraine, sat across from me, perfectly manicured nails drumming on the mahogany table, that practiced smile still plastered on her face. The same smile she wore at Dad's funeral 3 days ago. I never thought the woman who cried at my father's grave would be the same one demanding everything he built in 3 decades. But what she did not know was that Dad had shown me the real will 2 weeks before the stroke, and it was nothing like the one she was waving around. Before I tell you how this all unfolded, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. If you have ever dealt with family drama over money or inheritance, hit that like button. You are not alone in this. And subscribe, because what happened next taught me something about justice that no courtroom ever could. Now let me take you back to where it all started, to the moment a woman walked into our lives and tried to erase everything my mother and father built together. My name is Roosevelt. I am 32 years old, a mechanical engineer living in Portland, Oregon. My mother passed away when I was 16. Cancer, ovarian cancer to be specific. She fought for 3 years, and I watched her fade away in that hospital bed at Providence Portland Medical Center. Those 3 years taught me what real strength looked like. Mom never complained, not once. Even when the chemo made her so weak she could barely lift a spoon, she would smile and ask about my day at school. After Mom died, it was just Dad and me. Howard, my old man, he ran an auto repair shop called Howard's Auto Repair on Southeast Division Street. 30 years he poured into that place. 30 years of oil-stained hands, early mornings, and late nights. He taught me everything about engines, about fixing things that were broken, about the satisfaction of honest work. Every Sunday, we would sit in the living room, drink beer, and watch football. Seahawks games were sacred in our house. Dad was not the type to show emotion with words, but you could feel his love in the way he remembered how you took your coffee or fixed your car without being asked, or saved the last piece of pizza because he knew it was your favorite. Summer meant fishing trips to the Columbia River. Just Dad and me, a cooler full of sandwiches, and hours of silence broken only by the sound of water lapping against the boat. He taught me to cast a line when I was 7, taught me to drive in that old 1967 Chevy. He kept in the garage, the one with the bench seats and the smell of leather and motor oil. Those were the good years, the years before Lorraine. 3 years ago, Dad met her at a vintage car show in Eugene. Lorraine was 46, 11 years younger than Dad, with dyed red hair that she wore in big curls and a taste for bright floral dresses. She laughed loud, talked fast, had this throaty voice that turned heads. I remember Dad bringing her to dinner for the first time. She brought a casserole, asked me about my engineering work, complimented the house. I thought to myself, Dad deserves to be happy again. He had been alone for 13 years. If this woman made him smile, who was I to judge? 6 months later, they were engaged. It shocked me, I will admit. 6 months seemed fast, but Dad seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. The wedding was small, just 20 people in the backyard. Lorraine wore a white lace dress and smiled so wide her face must have hurt. I stood next to Dad as his best man watched him say his vows and hoped this was the beginning of something good for him. But during the reception, I overheard something that made my stomach turn. Lorraine was on her phone near the garage, and I was coming around the corner to grab more ice. Her voice was low, but I caught the words clearly. Yes, finally. 3 more years, and I am set. She did not see me. I froze, my heart pounding. 3 more years, until what's set for what I told myself I must have misunderstood. Maybe she meant something about her career, about retirement plans. I did not want to believe what my gut was screaming at me, so I stayed quiet. I did not say anything to Dad, That silence would haunt me later. The first month after the wedding, Lorraine started making changes. Small things at first. She reorganized the kitchen, bought new curtains, convinced Dad to get rid of his old recliner, and replace it with some modern furniture she picked out. Dad went along with it all, happy to make her happy. Then she started calling herself the household manager. She convinced Dad to open a joint bank account to deposit his paychecks there so she could handle the bills and expenses. It made sense on the surface. Couples shared finances. That was normal. But then the shopping started. Designer purses, expensive shoes, jewelry that cost more than my monthly rent. When Dad questioned it, Lorraine would run her fingers through his hair and say, "You work so hard, baby. You deserve to spoil me a little." And Dad, tired from 12-hour days at the shop, would just nod and go back to his beer. I watched him get more exhausted. He started taking on more work to cover Lorraine's spending. He looked older, moved slower. I tried to talk to him about it one Sunday during a commercial break. "Dad, are you sure about the joint account? That is a lot of money going out." He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Son, when you love someone, you trust them. Your mother and I had the same setup." I pushed a little more. "But Mom never spent like this." His face hardened. "Roosevelt, I appreciate your concern, but I'm 57, not 17. I know what I'm doing." That conversation put a wall between us for weeks. Lorraine stopped joining us for dinners. When I came by the house, she would find an excuse to be somewhere else. And when she did talk to me, there was this edge to her voice. "Your son is so protective, Howard, almost like he does not trust me." She would laugh when she said it, but her eyes stayed cold. A year into the marriage, Dad's health started declining. High blood pressure, stress-induced headaches. The light in his eyes had dimmed. Lorraine started pushing him to sell the shop to retire early and enjoy life. But Dad refused. "That shop is my life's work," he told her. "I am leaving it to Roosevelt." I was not there for that conversation, but Dad told me about it later. He said Lorraine went silent for 3 days after that, barely speaking to him. Then I found the bank statement. It was sitting on the kitchen counter when I stopped by to drop off some parts Dad needed for a Mustang restoration. Just sitting there, half hidden under a magazine. I should not have looked, but I did. The joint account showed withdrawal after withdrawal, $100,000, gone in 2 years. Designer stores, luxury hotels, cash withdrawals, all traced back to Lorraine's spending patterns. I checked further, called Dad's bank, pretending to verify some information for him. His personal savings account, the one he had built over 30 years, was nearly empty. $50,000 left from what should have been $300,000. The money had been transferred to the joint account, then systematically drained. I confronted Lorraine when Dad was at work. She was in the kitchen drinking white wine at 11 in the morning. "You are bleeding him dry," I said, my voice shaking with anger. She set down her glass, slowly looked at me with those cold eyes. "Your father gave me access. It is our money now. You are just jealous because you are not the center of his world anymore." I stepped closer. "You are stealing from him." She laughed, actually laughed. "He is my husband. Legally, what is his is mine. You should focus on your own life, Roosevelt. This does not concern you." I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and shake her, but I walked out instead, drove straight to Dad's shop. I told him everything, showed him the numbers I had written down. Dad listened, his face getting paler with each word, but then he said something that broke my heart. "Roosevelt, I know about the spending. I have known for months. But what am I supposed to do? Divorce her, admit I made a mistake at my age. I'm tired, son. I'm just so tired." That was when I realized Dad was trapped, not physically, but emotionally. He was embarrassed, ashamed, too proud to admit he had been fooled by a woman who saw him as nothing but a bank account. 2 weeks before Dad died, everything changed. He called me late one Tuesday night. His voice was serious, tight. "Roosevelt, I need you to come to the shop, now, and do not tell Lorraine." I drove there in the dark, my heart racing. The shop was closed, just one light on in the office. Dad was sitting at his desk, and he looked older than I had ever seen him. There was a manila envelope in front of him. "Son, I need to show you something, and you cannot tell Lorraine." He pushed the envelope across the desk. Inside was a will, a legal, properly formatted last will and testament dated 6 months earlier, drawn up by a lawyer named Thomas Brennan. I read through it, my hands shaking. The shop went to me. The house went to me. Dad's retirement accounts went to me. Lorraine received $25,000 and the right to stay in the house for 6 months, to find somewhere else to live. That was it. "Dad, this is—" I could not finish the sentence. He held up his hand. "I made a mistake marrying her, Roosevelt. I see that now. She does not love me. She loves what I have. But I will not let her take what your mother and I built." His voice cracked. "I kept the original with Brennan. There is a copy in my safety deposit box at First National Bank Box 237. If anything happens to me, promise you will protect what we built." I felt tears burning my eyes. "Dad, nothing is going to happen. We can fix this. We can get you out of this situation. We can—" He shook his head. "I am tired, son. So tired. Just promise me." I promised. I held his hand across that desk and promised I would protect his legacy. 9 days later, he had the stroke. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Marcus, one of the mechanics, found Dad collapsed next to a Ford F-150 he had been working on. He called 911 immediately. By the time I got the call, Dad was already in an ambulance heading to Providence Portland Medical Center. I was on a construction site inspecting a new building's mechanical systems. I dropped everything, ran to my truck, and drove like a madman through downtown Portland. I ran 2 red lights. I did not care. Lorraine was already at the hospital when I arrived, standing in the waiting room with her phone in her hand. She looked up when I burst through the doors, and her face was blank. Not sad, not worried, just blank. "They said it was a massive stroke," she said flatly. "He is in the ICU. A doctor came out 20 minutes later. Dr. Patricia Hammond, according to her name tag. "Massive stroke," she confirmed. "He is in critical condition. The next 48 hours will tell us if he will make it." She paused, looked between Lorraine and me. "You should prepare yourselves." I sat by Dad's bed for 2 days straight, held his hand. It was cold week. The machines beeped steadily, tracking his failing heart. I whispered to him, told him I loved him, told him I was sorry I had not done more to protect him from Lorraine. I told him about the fishing trip we were supposed to take next month, about the Seahawks game we had tickets for. I begged him to wake up. Lorraine was barely there. She came by twice, stayed for maybe 20 minutes each time, then left to go home and rest. She said the hospital made her anxious. On the second night, she did not come back at all. Dad died at 5:17 a.m. on a Saturday. I was there holding his hand when the monitor flatlined. The doctor came in, checked his vitals, looked at me with sad eyes and said, "I am sorry for your loss." The nurse turned off the machines. The room went silent. I sat there for another hour just holding Dad's hand, crying like I had not cried since Mom died. Lorraine showed up an hour later. Her hair was done. She was wearing makeup. She looked at Dad's body, nodded once, and said, "I will start making arrangements." No tears, no emotion, just cold efficiency. The funeral was 4 days later at Riverview Cemetery. Over 100 people came. Dad's customers, his friends, guys he played poker with on Fridays, neighbors, old high school buddies. Everyone loved Howard. He was that kind of man, solid, dependable, kind. Lorraine wore a simple black dress and big sunglasses. She cried loudly during the service, her shoulders shaking. But I stood next to her, and I could see her face when she turned. No tears. Her eyes were dry. It was all performance. After the service, she worked the crowd like a politician, shaking hands, accepting condolences. I heard her tell one of Dad's friends, Howard was such a generous man. He left me well taken care of. When someone asked about the shop, Lorraine said breezily, "Oh, that will be sold soon. Too much for me to handle." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "What?" I said. "Dad wanted me to—" She cut me off with a practiced smile. "We will discuss family matters privately, Roosevelt." Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were daggers. That evening, Lorraine called me and asked me to come to the house. I drove there with dread sitting heavy in my chest. She was sitting on the sofa in the living room, Dad's favorite spot, with a stack of papers on the coffee table. "Roosevelt, I know this is difficult, but we need to discuss Howard's estate." She pushed the papers toward me. "This is your father's will, signed 3 months ago." I picked up the document and started reading. With every word, my blood ran colder. According to this will, Lorraine inherited everything: the shop, the house, the bank accounts, the retirement funds, everything. I got the old Chevy and $5,000. That was it. This cannot be real. Dad told me. Lorraine cut me off. "Told you what? That he loved you?" "Of course he did, but I was his wife. Legally, spouses inherit." She tapped the paper. "This will was witnessed and notarized. See," she pointed to 2 signatures at the bottom: Sandra Pratt and Eugene Kowalski. Names I had never heard before. I looked at the date. 3 months ago. 1 month before Dad showed me the real will. But something was wrong. The signature looked like Dad's handwriting, but the strokes were shakier, less confident than his normal signature. "This is not right," I said. Lorraine leaned back, crossed her legs. "I have already contacted a realtor. The house will list next week. You have 30 days to clear out any personal items from Howard's shop." She paused, smiled that cold smile. "Oh, and the Chevy. That is being generous. It is worth maybe $3,000. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the papers in her face. "You are lying. This is not what Dad wanted." Lorraine stood up, smoothed her dress. "Prove it. You have a different will." "No. Then this is what stands. You are welcome to contest it in court, Roosevelt. But probate takes years. And I have the law on my side. Now I am tired. Please see yourself out." I drove home in a daze, sat in my apartment staring at the wall until 3 in the morning. How could she do this? How could someone smile at a funeral and then try to steal everything a man had worked for? But then I remembered. Dad's safety deposit box. The real will. I had to get it. The next morning, Saturday, I was at First National Bank when the doors opened at 9 a.m. I brought Dad's death certificate, my identification, everything I needed to prove I was his son. The bank employee, Jennifer Caldwell, was sympathetic. She led me to the vault, opened box 237, and left me alone. Inside was a thick manila envelope with my name written on it in Dad's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. The will was there exactly as I remembered, but there was also a letter, written in Dad's careful script. "Roosevelt, if you are reading this, I am gone. I am sorry I did not have the strength to leave Lorraine while I was alive. Pride is a terrible thing, son. I did not want to admit I had made such a big mistake at my age, but I will not let her take what your mother and I built. Everything in this will is yours. You earned it not by blood, but by being there every Sunday, every late night at the shop, every moment I needed someone, and you showed up. Lorraine will fight. She is cunning, but the truth is on your side. Thomas Brennan has the original. He is a good man. Trust him. I love you, Roosevelt. I am proud of the man you have become. Take care of the shop. Take care of yourself. Your old man, Howard." I cried right there in the bank vault. Jennifer quietly handed me tissues and stepped out to give me privacy. When I finally composed myself, I made a copy of everything and headed straight to Thomas Brennan's office. Brennan's office was downtown 12th floor of a building overlooking the Willamette River. He was 65, silver hair, gold-rimmed glasses, a calm presence that immediately put me at ease. "I've been expecting you," he said when his secretary showed me in. "Howard told me you would come." I laid out everything. Showed him Dad's real will from the safety deposit box, showed him photos of Lorraine's fake will. Brennan studied both documents carefully, his expression getting darker. "This is a forgery," he finally said, tapping Lorraine's version. "A decent one, but still a forgery." He pointed out the details. The signature was traced probably from a real document, but the pressure was inconsistent. The witnesses, Sandra Pratt and Eugene Kowalski, were likely fake names. "I will bet money they are either made-up people or individuals Lorraine paid to sign," he said. "Howard came to me 6 months ago terrified Lorraine would do exactly this. We took every precaution. The will I have is ironclad." Brennan leaned forward. "Here is what we are going to do. I will send a formal letter to Lorraine notifying her of the existence of the real will and demanding she cease all transactions related to the estate. If she refuses, we go to court. But Roosevelt, we have everything we need. This will be over in weeks, not years." 3 days later, we met at Brennan's office. Lorraine showed up with her own lawyer, a nervous-looking man named David Fletcher. Lorraine wore a red suit and dark lipstick. She looked confident, almost smug. Brennan did not waste time. He placed the real will on the conference table. "Mrs. Howard, this is your late husband's actual last will and testament executed 6 months ago with proper witnesses and notarization. The document you presented is a forgery." Lorraine's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. "What? That is impossible. Howard signed that will in front of me." Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "You cannot just claim forgery without proof." Brennan slid another document across the table. "This is a handwriting analysis from a certified forensic expert. The signature on your will is a forgery. Furthermore, your witnesses, Sandra Pratt and Eugene Kowalski, do not exist in any Oregon DMV records. You fabricated witnesses, Mrs. Howard. That is a felony." Lorraine's confidence cracked. Her face flushed red. Howard did sign this. Maybe someone else forged." I leaned forward, my voice cold. "Stop lying. Dad knew what you were. He told me 2 weeks before he died." Brennan was not finished. He pulled out another folder. "We also have your banking records showing $230,000 withdrawn from the joint account over 3 years. And we have emails between you and a Mr. Kyle Patterson discussing your plans to. And I, quote, have everything in a few more months so you can be together." My heart stopped. "You were cheating on him too." Lorraine started crying, but they were fake tears, theatrical. "Kyle is just a friend. This is ridiculous." Brennan's voice turned to steel. "Mrs. Howard, you have 2 options. Option 1, you walk away now. Take the $25,000 Howard left you in the real will. Accept the 6 months in the house to find new accommodations. We will not press criminal charges. Option 2, we go to court. I will push for fraud prosecution. You will lose everything and possibly face jail time. You have 60 seconds to decide." The room went silent. Lorraine looked at her lawyer. Fletcher whispered urgently, "Take the deal, Lorraine. We cannot win this." Lorraine's face twisted with rage. Finally, she spat out, "Fine, I will take the money. But this family is pathetic. Howard was a boring old man anyway. I wasted 3 years." She signed the papers with violent strokes, stood up, and glared at me. "Enjoy your precious shop, Roosevelt. I hope it makes you happy." I met her eyes calmly. "It will, because it was built with love, not greed." She stormed out. The door slammed so hard the walls shook. 2 weeks later, the court officially recognized Dad's real will. Lorraine collected her $25,000 check and moved out of the house in 5 days. She did not take the full 6 months. I think she could not stand to be there anymore. I moved back into the house. It felt empty at first. Lorraine had taken some things, the television, some decorations, anything she thought had value. But the important stuff was still there. Family photos, Dad's reading chair, his tools in the garage, his presents. I found a small box in his bedroom nightstand. Inside were birthday cards I had made him as a kid, photos of us fishing, and a piece of paper with Dad's handwriting, "Roosevelt, best son a man could ask for." I sat on his bed and cried for an hour. Out of curiosity, I hired a private investigator to look into Lorraine's background. What I found made me sick. She had been married twice before, both times to older, wealthy men. The first husband died of a heart attack, left her $100,000. The second divorced her after catching her cheating, paid her $50,000 in the settlement. Dad was her third target. It was a pattern, a strategy. She was a predator. But she had finally met someone who saw through her, someone who loved his son enough to protect what they had built together. I kept my promise, Dad. I kept your legacy safe. The first month after Lorraine left was the hardest. I still woke up sometimes at 3 a.m. thinking I heard Dad calling my name. The house felt too big, too quiet. I would walk through the rooms and see him everywhere. His coffee mug still in the cupboard, his jacket still hanging by the door, the indent in his favorite chair where he used to sit and watch the Seahawks. I went to the shop every day. Marcus Lewis and Danny, the mechanics Dad employed for years, were worried about the future. I gathered them in the office and told them the shop was staying open. I was taking over. They looked relieved. "Your dad would be proud, man," Marcus said, shaking my hand. The second month I started making changes, small ones. I repainted the sign out front, "Howard's Auto Repair," kept the name exactly the same. But I added a line underneath, "Established 1993, a family legacy." Customers started coming back, the regulars, who had been worried the shop would close. An old man named Mr. Vernon came in with his Buick and shook my hand. "Your dad would be proud, son. You are keeping his dream alive." I slowly started rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends Jackson and Tyrell. We went to a Seahawks game, drank beer, yelled at the television like we used to. It felt good to laugh again. I joined the local fishing club, the same one Dad used to belong to. Standing by the Columbia River with a rod in my hand, I felt closer to him than I had since he died. I even started dating again. Her name was Adriana, an interior designer I met through mutual friends. She was kind, patient, understanding. She did not push me to talk about Dad before I was ready. When I finally told her the whole story about Lorraine, she just held my hand and said, "You did the right thing. You honored him." The shop started doing better. Revenue was up 25% after 6 months. I hired a young apprentice named Isaiah, a kid right out of trade school, who reminded me of myself at that age. I taught him the way Dad taught me, how to diagnose an engine by sound, how to treat customers with respect, how to take pride in good work. Passing on that knowledge felt right, like I was continuing something bigger than myself. A year after Dad died, I drove out to the Columbia River alone. It was late afternoon, the sun starting to set, painting the sky orange and pink. I sat on the bank where Dad and I used to fish, cast my line into the water, and just breathed. The grief was still there, but it had changed. It was not the sharp, cutting pain anymore. It was softer, sadder, but also sweeter, like remembering something beautiful that you know you will never have again. I caught a salmon, a big one, the kind Dad would have been excited about. But instead of keeping it, I released it back into the river, watched it swim away into the current. "Some things are not meant to be kept," I said out loud to the empty air. "They are meant to be honored and let go." It felt like I was releasing my anger at Lorraine, my pain about losing Dad, all the weight I had been carrying. I talked to Dad in my mind. "I did it, Dad. I kept my promise. The shop is safe. Your legacy is safe." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees, and for a moment I swear I felt him there, felt his approval, his pride. "I miss you every day, but I am okay." I am going to be okay. Over that year, I learned things I had not understood before. I learned that greed is loud, obnoxious, impossible to miss. But kindness, real kindness, is everywhere if you just look for it. It is in Marcus staying late to help me figure out the books. It is in Mr. Vernon bringing donuts for the crew every Friday. It is in Adriana listening to me talk about Dad without getting jealous of a ghost. It is in Isaiah's eager questions and willingness to learn. I learned that family is not just about blood. It is built in small moments. The Sunday dinners, the late night talks, the times you show up when no one else does. Dad showed me that. Mom showed me that. And now I was passing it on. I learned that sometimes love means fighting, not with fists or anger, but with truth. Standing up for what is right even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. Dad could not fight Lorraine when he was alive. He was too tired, too embarrassed, too trapped. But he fought for me in the only way he could. He made sure the truth would come out, that I would be protected. And I learned to let go of hate. I do not hate Lorraine anymore. I did for a long time. But hate is poison. It eats you from the inside. Lorraine is just a sad, empty person who will spend her whole life chasing things that will never make her happy. She got $25,000 and lost her soul in the process. That is punishment enough. The real inheritance, the one that matters, is not money. It is not property. It is the values Dad taught me, the work ethic, the integrity, the love. It is knowing that I was loved not for what I could give, but for who I was. That is the kind of wealth Lorraine will never understand. And that is the kind of wealth no one can ever steal. 2 years after Dad died, I stood in the shop one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was 34 years old. Isaiah was next to me learning how to change the oil on a Honda Accord. The radio played soft country music. Sunlight streamed through the windows, lighting up the dust motes in the air. Adriana stopped by with sandwiches for lunch. We were engaged now. She wore the ring Dad had given Mom, the one I found in his dresser. It felt right. I paused in my work and looked around, at the tools Dad left behind, at the photo of him on the wall smiling in his coveralls, at the sign outside that still bore his name. And I felt peace, real deep peace. Lorraine thought she could take everything Dad built, but she was wrong. You cannot steal love. You cannot forge trust. You cannot claim a legacy you did not earn. Dad left me something Lorraine could never understand. He left me the knowledge that I was loved, not for what I had, but for who I was. He left me the tools to build a good life. He left me the example of how to be a good man. I wiped my hands on a rag exactly the way Dad used to, and smiled at Isaiah. Okay, now tighten the drain plug. Not too tight, just snug. He nodded, focused, determined to get it right. Watching him, I realized this was it. This was the inheritance that mattered. The ability to pass on knowledge, to help someone become better, to build instead of destroy. Some battles are won in courtrooms, but the real victory, it is waking up every day and choosing to build instead of destroy, to love instead of take, to honor the people who believed in you. That is the inheritance that matters. And no one can ever take that away. So let me ask you, have you ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Drop your story in the comments. I would love to hear it. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button. It tells me these stories matter. Subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up, fighting back, and finding peace on the other side of pain. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that justice, real justice, is possible. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope wherever you are, whatever you are facing, you find the strength to protect what matters. Take care of yourselves. And remember, the best inheritance is not what people leave you, it is who they taught you to become.